Philadelphia, Smokin Joe Frazier.
Joe Frazier is a great boxer who should be included in everyone's top 10 best heavyweights of all time. His fights with Muhammad Ali and George Foreman were some of the most spectacular in the golden age of heavyweight boxing and are still a sight to behold, even a half-century later. A difficult childhood and a hardened character left an imprint on Frazier's fighting style. Smokin Joe didn't know what fatigue was, didn't know what it was like to get knocked down and never get up again. He was always eager to attack, worked great with his body, and had a devastating left hook. Amongst the trio of greats, his boxing was perhaps the most spectacular to watch, even if it was never his aim. Unfortunately, Joe's boxing career ended relatively early, and he didn't fight in as many bouts as we would have liked. But the fights we do have with him are more than enough to entertain us even decades later. Watching as Frazier lays low one opponent after another is definitely worthwhile. Having spent about 40 fights in amateur boxing and winning the Tokyo Olympics in 1964, Joe Frazier soon made his professional boxing debut against Woody Goss, winning the fight in the first round. Let's skip the next 5 fights, as unfortunately I was not able to find any videos of Smokin Joe's first 5 knockouts. His 6th fight, and coincidentally his 6th knockout, came against Dick Whipperman, who lasted longer than any of his previous opponents, but still lost in the 5th. The referee stopped the fight.
The referee steps in and stops the fight. Joe Frazier remains unbeaten as he scores a 5th-round knockout over Dick Whipperman.
Just as with Frazier's first 5 fights, there currently aren't any videos showcasing his next 3 fights, so we will unfortunately have to skip them too. But don't worry, Joe Frazier continued confidently crushing his opponents and knocking all of them out before the end of the 3rd round. Joe's 10th fight was against Al Jones. After an excellent blow to the body, Al didn't get up. It took Frazier 2 minutes and 30 seconds. The first opponent that stood more than 5 rounds against Frazier was Billy Daniels, who after fighting 6 rounds refused to go out for round 7. By the way, Muhammad Ali also fought Billy Daniels 4 years prior and beat him in 7 rounds. The unbroken knockout streak ended in Frazier's first fight against the Argentinian-born Oscar Bonavena. This was Joe's most difficult bout after going pro. Bonavena knocked down Frazier twice, but Smokin Joe managed to hold on and won by a split and controversial decision. The next bout was also challenging. Joe's opponent was the 34-year-old American Eddie Machen, who after fighting Frazier would fight in 2 more bouts and conclude his boxing career. It took Joe 10 rounds to knock out his opponent. The referee stopped the fight, but there was a sense that the decision was a bit premature.
The referee steps in and stops the fight.
After 13 fights in just over a year, Joe Frazier had slowed down and started to fight less regularly. In 1967, Smokin Joe entered the ring half as many times, fighting in only 6 bouts. He started the year by knocking out Doug Jones in the 6th, who also, just like Eddie Machen, retired from boxing after his next 2 fights after Smokin Joe. It's easy to find a video of the 17-year-old Cassius Clay versus Jefferson Davis, which took place in 1960. But there's no video of Frazier's 1967 fight against the same opponent anywhere. Regardless, Joe continued his undefeated run by ending the fight in the 5th with a technical knockout. The Canadian George Chuvalo was famous for not once in his 93-fight professional career being knocked down, despite fighting most of the colossus of that era, including Ali and Foreman. Fighting Frazier, Chuvalo stood 3 rounds, and the referee decided to stop the fight in the 4th after George started to eat too many punches.
The referee steps in and stops the fight.
The next opponent was an unremarkable Tony Doyle. Frazier defeated him without any problems by technical knockout in the 2nd round. Marion Connor resisted for a round longer. Smokin Joe unleashed a flurry of punches on his opponent, knocking him down as a result. Conor got up, but the referee decided not to risk the fighter's health and ended the fight.
A tremendous left hook sends Conor to the canvas, and it looks like the beginning of the end. Even the ref's upset. The bout is stopped, and Frazier wins by a TKO.
Frazier scored his 20th victory against a massive Buster Mathis. 4 years earlier, Mathis defeated Joe at the Olympics, but later got injured, and Frazier successfully represented the States at the Olympics. In addition, by defeating Buster, Joe could win the vacant NYSAC heavyweight title. The backstory for the bout, just like the fight itself, turned out to be perfect. The opponent tried to wear down Frazier with clinches, and breaking the distance successfully landed hard blows. In the 11th round, Joe knocked Mathis down. The referee started counting, with Buster getting up on 9, but seeing his condition, the referee did not allow Mathis to continue. Frazier's first title defense was against Manuel Ramos, who was an ordinary boxer whose redeeming statistic was that he never lost by a knockout. Smokin Joe dealt with him by the end of the 2nd round. After losing to Joe, Ramos almost forgot what it was like to win in the boxing ring, with strings of back-to-back defeats tarnishing his record.
Manuel's back against the ropes. Another fine left by Joe Frazier. Ramos is taking a tremendous pounding, and down goes Manuel Ramos.
Frazier closed 1968 by once again beating Oscar Bonavena via a 15-round decision in a hard-fought rematch. Bonavena fought somewhat defensively and allowed himself to be often bullied to the ropes, which let Frazier build a wide points margin. Ring magazine showed Bonavena afterward with a gruesomely bruised face. It had been a punishing match. Frazier's 23rd bout and 20th knockout came against Dave Ziegelwiz. The victory was convincing. From the very beginning, Joe did not give his opponent any space, knocking him out halfway into the first with a crushing signature left hook to the head. Joe's next fight against Jerry Quarry proved to be much more difficult. Quarry was a relentless boxer and won many fights against top opponents. His previous bout saw victory over Buster Mathis, a man Frazier struggled with at the beginning of his career. Joe's fight against Quarry was a meat grinder, with strikes flying left and right, dynamic movement from both parties, and minimal clinching. On the advice of the doctor, the referee did not release the cut and exhausted Jerry for the 8th round, and the ring called the bout the fight of the year.
With its usual zip. It may be that that right hand has been injured, but we can't know for sure till after the fight. 30 seconds to go.
Meanwhile, the WBA hosted an 8-man tournament that featured most of the top heavyweight contenders. Its winner was Muhammad Ali's sparring partner, Jimmy Ellis, who became Frazier's next opponent. Smokin Joe didn't let Ellis do anything right from the start, increasing the pressure in the 4th and landing several strikes. Jimmy Ellis fell face down, managed to get up, and proceeded to gracefully collapse right under the gong. Frazier's devastating left hook made history. In his 25th bout, Joe finally became the undisputed champion.
Mandatory 8 count. He was up at 9. Frazier is strong. There are, as you can see, just seconds left. Frazier again with the left. Ellis standing there. Oh! A tremendous left hook, and he cannot be saved by the bell. He cannot be saved by the bell.
The next fight proved to be remarkably simple. Bob Foster boasted an impressive statistic that consisted of numerous wins. But as it often happens with average boxers with good stats, these victories were mainly over weak opponents. Joe Frazier quickly showed Foster where he really belonged and knocked him out in the 2nd. After a magnificent left hook, Foster dropped and didn't even attempt to get up.
Champion Joe Frazier moves in to finish it. Paralyzing punches by champion Joe Frazier. A dynamite left hook, and Bob Foster goes down again.
So, drumroll, the first fight against the legendary Muhammad Ali. This was an excellent bout, one of the finest in boxing history, marking the peak of Joe Frazier's career. Smokin Joe amazed everyone by going forward relentlessly and knocking Ali down in the 5th round. Frazier confidently won by unanimous decision, finally becoming the universally recognized champion. After defeating the greatest, Frazier became complacent and stopped training as intensely as he once had. His next fight came almost a year later against the little-known Terry Daniels. Unsurprisingly, the rested champion had no trouble beating Daniels in the 4th. What strike do you think sealed the deal? That's right. Once again, it was the left hook.
Said he's all right. Frazier is trying to take him out of there. Left and right. Another left hook to the midsection. A right, left, left. Follow with another right, left and right, and he's over the rope.
Following Terry Daniels, Frazier fought with Ron Stander, another remarkable boxer. With all due respect, he was more akin to a punching bag than a normal fighter. Frazier didn't try very hard to quickly finish the fight, but it was clear even to the untrained eye that he could do it at any moment he wished. Poor Stander spent the whole 4th round in torment, not able to do anything to oppose Joe. Ron refused to fight going into the 5th, with Smokin Joe bagging another win.
Stander has not been down. Frazier cutting him up methodically, in close, just cutting him to ribbons now.
George Foreman ended Frazier's unbeaten run in a spectacular fashion. Joe was knocked down 6, I repeat, 6 times in the span of just the first round and a half.
Saying it, you may hear him. Down goes Frazier! Down goes Frazier!
Frazier was absolutely not ready for Foreman. His victory over Ali drained him dry of motivation, and the next 2 bouts with passable opponents in no way helped keep Joe in peak shape. Frazier was mangled, and after this defeat would never again be the world champion.
It is over! It is over!
Joe Bugner was a kind of rehearsal before the upcoming 2nd fight with Muhammad Ali. Interestingly, prior to fighting Frazier, Bugner's last fight was against Ali. The greatest was forced to work hard to beat the uncompromising Bugner by unanimous decision. Frazier decided to keep the trend going and won with exactly the same outcome. The 2nd bout with Frazier and Ali is considered the least spectacular of the 3. Smokin Joe was no longer in the excellent shape he was in for the 1st fight, and Ali was much better prepared for the rematch. Despite Frazier losing the match in the end, many still consider that a draw would have been a fairer and more logical conclusion. Losing to Ali, Frazier decided to go back to his previous opponents. The unrelenting Jerry Quarry decided to employ a more cautious strategy than in his 1st bout, but it didn't help him much, with the legendary referee Joe Louis ending the fight in the 5th.
Legs are in bad shape, and he's got a cut over his right. Quarry's to go in the round. A very bad cut over the left eye by Quarry. Quarry is game, and it's all over, I think. Yep, it's all over.
The last knockout and the last win for Joe Frazier would come in his bout with Jimmy Ellis, who Smokin Joe fought over 5 years ago. The chasm between 1970 and 1975 Frazier was vast and deep, both in terms of physical form as well as events occurring outside the ring. Frazier's last victory fight ended with a technical knockout in the 9th round.
Dundee signaled that he's had enough and the fight is all over.
Everyone in the trio of greats, which included Ali, Foreman, and Frazier, ended their career with a defeat. The irony was that Smokin Joe's last bouts were not against unremarkable opponents, only there to boost his stats, but against both legends themselves, gifting the world the unforgettable and widely known bout that was dubbed Thrilla in Manila. The 32-year-old Frazier left the boxing world suffering 2 defeats, maligned by problems with his eyesight and excessive weight. Despite his relatively young age by heavyweight standards, Joe didn't have significant prospects to remain in the sport due to his smaller size compared to other top boxers. Losing agility and with his reflexes slowing down, he became an easier target for other elite heavies with every passing month. Our hero is going to conclude his boxing career and will return to the ring only once again in 5 years, bringing the fight to a draw against Floyd Cummings. Despite the tragic conclusion to his career, Frazier remains one of the most iconic boxers in history and one of the greatest heavyweights to ever hold the title. But I'm sure you already knew that.
Smokin Joe Frazier.